Okay, well, hi everyone. This is Anthony Alaka with Torrey Hills Capital, and I want to welcome you to the Ventripoint Diagnostics podcast for January 21st, 2021. I want to wish everyone a happy new year, and I hope you're all doing well under the circumstances. And here's hoping that things will start getting back to normal again in the coming months. The company we're talking about is fairly new to the Torrey Hills family of companies, but it seems like many people who are on this webinar already know the company very well. But we believe their technology is a game changer in the medical imaging space for many reasons, and we feel that based on current fundamentals, the stock presents an excellent value for investors, and we're very excited to bring them to you today. Ventripoint Diagnostics is a commercial stage AI healthcare company that has developed an extremely valuable diagnostics platform which addresses a very large unmet need in the medical scanning market space. Ventripoint's platform enables the massive in-place fleet of two-dimensional ultrasound devices to create highly detailed and accurate three-dimensional views of the heart. Prior to the introduction of Ventripoint's solution, the only way to get this data was using MRI technology, but the use of that equipment to perform this task had a number of significant drawbacks, which we'll cover during this call. These limitations to using MRI to scan the heart have really created a massive market opportunity for Ventripoint to move this platform into the healthcare community in a big way, which we'll also be addressing during this presentation. Ventripoint Diagnostics trades on the OTC market under the ticker VPTDF and on the TSX Venture Exchange under the ticker symbol VPT. Ventripoint shares are currently trading at around 13 cents US, representing a market cap of roughly $10 million. In other words, even though it's made a little bit of a move here recently, we feel there's still plenty of upward potential as they step up sales volume of their systems, as we're seeing by the company's latest contracts. With us today to discuss Ventripoint Diagnostics and their growth strategy going forward is the company's Executive Chairman and CEO, Dr. George Adams. George, welcome. As usual, it's great to have you.
Happy to be here, Anthony, as usual.
Great. I want to let viewers know that if you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to click the raise your hand icon and I can unmute your microphone, or you can simply type your question into the chat box and we'll make sure we read it to George and he can answer it. We'll also be taking questions at the end of the presentation. And with that said, I'll now turn it over to George. George, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon. Happy to be here. Just going to bash through the regular deck here, and then we'll get right to the questions because I think there's lots of people online who've heard the story before. So, of course, first thing I say is go, and it won't go. So, as you know, Ventripoint is all about getting a better look at your heart. And we use an artificial intelligence mechanism to model and calculate all the functional parameters of all four chambers of the heart using conventional 2D ultrasound. We're approved for use with any patient with any problem in US, Canada, Europe, and China. We put early days for us. We put 11 machines in at 11 clinical sites. They're being used every day, and we've got 11 more to put in, but we're kind of on halt right now because of COVID, but we anticipate that will open up as the vaccine rollout continues. Really entering what we would consider a high growth phase in that we want to get 80 to 100 units out by mid 2020. And that threshold is where we really get through the early adopters and you're now into the bulk of the people who want the equipment. That being said, we'll probably exceed that because we'll have repeat orders from our users who are using it now, and they'll need many more than one machine per hospital. And we believe we have a clear pathway to liquidity and a nice return on investment, but that's really what Anthony's here to talk about. So as you know, when you go to have your heart looked at, it's a 2D ultrasound exam. It's a very, very standard tool right now, but it doesn't really give you accurate, reliable volumes. It's very bad at measuring right ventricle, anything, volume, ejection fraction, even getting a decent picture of it. So it doesn't give you the standard metrics you would want from the right side of the heart, let alone it doesn't do right atrium or left atrium well either. And it's difficult to get good images on a number of people, especially obese people. So there's a lot of drawbacks to 2D ultrasound that could be improved. And obviously we're here to show that we've improved them. If you could, because of all those reasons, if you really want to get good data on someone's heart, you have to go to an MRI, and that's a very expensive and time-consuming process. Long lag time between when the test is ordered and when you actually get it done. And on top of that, you have to be injected with contrast media, and often people have to be sedated to go into the machine. In fact, you're in the machine for anywhere from an hour to 2 hours on a full cardiac scan. And about 40% of people won't go in the machine, and about 25% of people who do go in the machine don't make it to the end of the hour, the first hour, let alone the second hour. So, what we have done with the Ventripoint system is that we've got in 5 minutes, we can collect the scans we need. You're allowed full movement during scan collection. There's no sedation or needles or contrast media injected into you, and you get an immediate outcome. It takes 5 minutes to do the analysis right now. Our expert users can get it done in about 2.5, 3 minutes, but we say 5. And the cardiologist has to look at the outcome and get the answer. And the big plus to the healthcare system is, instead of spending $2 to $4 million to do 2 or 3 patients in an afternoon, you can spend $50,000 and do 10 patients in an afternoon. So huge benefit to getting through people and getting good data. So our latest machine, version 3, is there on the left-hand side of the screen. It's just a little computer on a stick on a portable stand. The magic of what we do is mostly in the software and a little bit of hardware. And the hardware is, if you look at the hand of the operator there, you can see 2 wires coming out of his hand. One is for the probe, and the other one is a crystal, which gives us a tracking system. So we're able to track exactly where the probe is when it collects that slice through your heart. And that allows us to do the 3-dimensional reconstructions accurately and absolutely equivalent to MRI. We've been at this for 10 years, so we've had numerous iterations and processes to try and to validate that this is correct, it works and it's accurate. And we have over 200 publications by independent researchers proving that it's as good as MRI in all sorts of different kinds of patients and situations. So it's been a long line, but we have got the tool that really works well now. And so this is what the images you get when you typically look at someone's heart. You typically get 16 slices through the heart from 4 or 5 different windows. And you have to look at all these slices and imagine where those slices are in the heart and build in your mind a 3-dimensional idea of what that heart looks like. It's not easy for most people to do that. And also these are actually quite clear images. They can be quite blurry. But we're able to do that and build a model, and I'll just show you how we do that. So this is a slice through the heart, like I just told you. This is actually the right side of the heart is on the left side of the picture. The left side of the heart's on the right side of the picture. The top is actually the bottom, and the bottom is actually the top. This is just the way the way ultrasound works, and so we just get used to seeing everything in a mirror image upside down. What we do is we put dots on there, and that creates, because we know where the dots are and where the planes are in 3-dimensional space, we're able to build a constellation of dots which defines the shape and size of that particular ventricle or piece of the heart. In this case, it's a right ventricle, because we are uniquely able to get really good data on right ventricles. So it gives you a model of what the heart looks like. You can touch any one of the dots, and it shows you where that plane actually is as it goes through the ventricle of the heart, and it automatically draws what we call the border, which is this yellow line. So there's, you can see where the plane was. Now you can see the yellow border where the heart is. If you looked at that 2D plane without the 3D model there, you'd be hard pressed to see what part of the heart you're actually looking at. And so you can keep doing that and going around, and you can do it in over and over again. But this is what, and when cardiologists, doctors, and sonographers look at these images, they're amazed, because they're so used to not really knowing what they're looking at. And of course, the system automatically calculates from that. It calculates the volumes, the end diastolic volume, the end systolic volume, and the indexes and the cardiac output, and all the things you would normally get from an MRI when you did it. You get the same data, but you get it in 5 minutes instead of 2 hours. So as I said, we've been at this for a long time. We've been through the FDA 3 times with version 1, version 2, version 3. We're now on version 3. And the feedback from our users is that it's perfect. It's exactly what they wanted. So, all things, when you try to change things, you have to do a lot of market research. You have to do a lot of user interface. I mean, some of you may remember back to the very first cell phone. You can imagine what that looked like back a long time ago. So over time, the cell phone has evolved. Over time, our machine has evolved, and it's now, according to our users, exactly what they need. So we're focused on key market segments we're trying to drive sales in, and that's congenital heart disease, because we're uniquely able to get good data on right heart. And if you have a heart problem when you're born with a heart problem, it's almost always your right side of your heart, because if you have a problem with the left side of the heart, you don't get born. And so all the pediatric cardiologists in the world are focused on the right side of the heart, but there's now a number of adult cardiologists who focus on adults who had congenital heart disease and have had surgically repaired and are living, and they now live to have a normal life, but of course they have to be monitored heavily throughout their life, because they're very likely to have right heart problems even after multiple surgeries. And the next one is pulmonary hypertension. Again, that's a right heart problem mostly, because when you build up congestion in your lungs, whether you have COPD or lung cancer or recently COVID, you put back pressure on the heart. The right side of the heart's not very strong. It has a hard time pumping blood through the lungs and over to the left side of the heart if there's any kind of congestion. And so you get what's called pulmonary hypertension and right heart failure. So again, that's an area that we are particularly good at providing useful information. The other one is cardiotoxic effects of chemotherapy. About 20 to 30% of people who go through chemotherapy, whether actually chemotherapy, radiotherapy, immunotherapy, almost any kind of cancer therapy, come out the other side with their cancer in remission, but they now have a chronic heart problem. And in fact, the American Heart Association has counseled everybody who's made it through the other side of chemotherapy or cancer therapy, they should now go visit their cardiologist, because they're more likely to die from a heart problem than from the original cancer. So that's a driver. And so that's one of the reasons we put on one of our machines in MD Anderson, which is the #1 cancer hospital in the world, has been for the last 30 years. And the doctor there is quite excited about being able to look at the hearts of these patients before, during, and after every cancer therapy session to really sort out what's happening to these hearts and whether they can be, something can be done to prevent this kind of 20 to 30% problem. Last one we've been looking at now is COVID. We put a machine in at King's College recently, just before Christmas, and it's that's for COVID Central, UK COVID Central place, and so again, same problem as pulmonary hypertension. You get all sorts of lung disease. On top of that, you actually have direct damage by the virus of the heart. We're now seeing anywhere from 40 to 60% of people with heart failure, heart problems, acutely with infectious disease. And we've been through this before with coronaviruses, SARS. There's actually 10% of people with SARS still have chronic heart and lung problems 15 years after the original infection. So if that's going to happen, when I talk to cardiologists now, more and more of them are talking to me about, what is going to be, with all these people infected with COVID, what are we going to be doing for the next 10 years is just dealing with the consequences of heart problems from COVID. The last one we just announced a couple of weeks ago was this companion animal initiative. There are 100 million dogs in the United States, and they all have hearts, and about 10% of them have heart problems. And we'll talk a bit more about that later. So all of these are sort of, our tool, our VMS can be used on anybody's heart for any reason. These are areas where we think we add a lot more value. Heart disease continues to be the #1 cause of death worldwide. It's very difficult to really assess how a person's heart is doing. You need very sophisticated tools like ours. There's lots of money spent every year on new echocardiogram machines like ours. And of course, that's a small amount compared to the overall cost of cardiovascular disease in the world. So we've been getting early traction, like Anthony said. We put, in September, we put a machine in Erasmus Hospital in the Netherlands, and Rotterdam is the #1 cardiovascular hospital in the world. In October, we put one in MD Anderson. In November, we put one in Peter Munk, which is the largest center in Canada. And then on December, we put it into King's College. So in spite of the fact that COVID has been slowing us down, I think it's a great pat on the back for the team. because we've been able to get these machines in there and up and operational, remotely installed and remotely train everybody to use them in spite of the COVID situation. So it's not easy, but we are showing that we can get it done, and we have 11 more to do. When they get done will really depend on when those particular hospitals are opening up again, when they get COVID in their region under control. And really the strategy to go forward to sell these devices is to, get these key opinion leaders at these top hospitals to use the machine and talk about it and publish papers on it, and to go to major medical conferences and talk about it. And then Dr. Monahan at King's College convenes the echocardiography conference every year at EuroEcho. He's the convener of that conference. So he's on the podium every day. So very keen that he's the one who's using our machine, and he's going to talk about it when EuroEcho comes around this year for sure. We also are going to get those key KOLs to be on webinars and to other doctors and talking about case studies, showing what we've done, why the machine has been so useful in this kind of patient, the kind of patients I've outlined earlier. They're lining up. We should start those webinars probably in about a month or so. And that'll be a big boost to us having the world experts talking about why this machine is something everybody should be using. We're in the process of publishing probably be out in 2 weeks, a multi-year experience by a major heart center about how they've used our machine on CHD children for many, many years, and a number of case studies. Fantastic. It'll just show exactly how it's going to change healthcare going forward. And we are currently, we can become members of associations like the American Adult Congenital Heart Disease Association, and they will put together webinars for us. So they'll get, several hundred doctors on a webinar at one time to learn about our system. So that's how we're going to do it. And along the way, we will probably have some distributor relationships as well as some alliances. We currently estimate the market to be about 40,000 machines just for never mind COVID, just oncology, pulmonary hypertension, and congenital heart disease in US, Canada, and Europe. You put in the whole world numbers there, it gets to be huge numbers. But just those 3 jurisdictions and 3 indications are at $50,000 each, is a $2 billion market. So lots of opportunity. We're just getting started at this. We currently sell them. We have 2 ways we sell the machine now. We can sell it for $50,000, have a $5,000 a year maintenance fee. And we have one thing I didn't point out on the way by, but we now have a patch, because you can now move the patient, move around during scanning. We now have a crystal that a patch that we put on the patient, which tells us where the patient is while we're scanning them. And that's a disposable. So we have an ongoing revenue from the disposable on every procedure. And that's also, and we also, the second model we have is a leasing model. So we're currently offering the machine as a lease for $15,000 a year, and you get the first 200 cases free, and then $50 a case thereafter. I mean, there is a reimbursement code in the United States where doctors on the hospitals get reimbursed anywhere from $100 to $200. And so, in the first 75 to 150 cases, they'll break even on the $15,000 upfront fee. And then it's just a rev share, 150 for the hospital, $50 for us. And so this model is being very well received by the US hospitals that we've presented it to. And one of the longer term strategies here is to get that CPC code, a particular CPC code for what we do, because that one there is just a general one for doing 3D reconstruction from a 2D ultrasound, not necessarily specific to hearts. They also use that code to do 3D reconstruction on carotid arteries and other things. So we want to get one specific for doing a VMS analysis of a heart, because we're delivering exactly the same value you're getting from doing an MRI, and you get paid $1,200 for an MRI. So, somewhere between $200 and $1,200 is what the hospital should be getting reimbursed, because that's the amount of information that they're generating. And so then we'll be able to move up that per use fee up to, a few $100s instead of $50 a use. But that's something that will happen over the next couple of years, not right away, because we have to petition the CMS to do that. So as I said, we have early traction. We have 11 sites completed, 11 in progress. There's a bunch of there, 3 in China. There's actually more in China, but I haven't, we're waiting for the Chinese to give us the exact locations for those. And, and what's more important is that every one of these centers is connected to another center. Like MD Anderson has 13 hospitals in their network of people. Once MD Anderson is convinced this is going to really change the way, or prove, they're already convinced, prove that this really is changing the way you need to treat your cancer patients, then they'll buy, my estimate is they'll need hundreds of these machines just for the MD Anderson hospitals alone. So we see this as sell one and then see a lot of repeat sales. Companion animal model, that's could be almost as big a market, because there's actually 30,000 veterinary practices in the United States. One statistic that jumped out at me recently was the Bank of America study, which showed that 37% of households in the United States have adopted a pet in these COVID times, in the last 12 months. Wow. So that's a very big market. And one of the advantages of our system is it's so easy to learn, it's so intuitive. Even a vet who hasn't done ultrasound before can get a 2D ultrasound machine, do the scanning and do the reconstruction and get really good numbers. So we announced a collaboration with the North Carolina State University vet school there, one of the top schools in the United States, and they're just validating the system for us. That should happen very quickly. There's no regulatory here. So once we have the data that shows we get equivalent results from MRI, then we can just go ahead and start marketing this. And there are some, dominant distributors in the industry, which we've already started talking to about distributing our product. So, the exit opportunity, as far as we're concerned, is, we're not dumb. We know that all young companies like us get bought by the big guys: Philips, Siemens, GE, Samsung, Fuji, Toshiba, Mindray. So there's about 5 or 6 major ultrasound companies in the world. Obviously, Philips and GE are the number, and Siemens are the 3 top cardiac ultrasound companies. And they acquire things. So the last person that Philips acquired was TomTech, which was an analytics company, a company that was sort of focused on analyzing 3D ultrasound. 3D ultrasound is not clinically used because you don't get good enough images often enough, but it might get there someday. But that has put both GE and Siemens and other cardiac wannabes like Mindray behind the 8 ball in terms of getting better analytics done. So they're going to need somebody like us to help them stay up with Philips and TomTech. And the other possible acquisition is through there now being a number of third-party service providers who actually, the trend in MRI, cardiac and other MRI images and PET and even CAT scans is to send those images out, have them analyzed by an expert group and get the answers back. It's just becoming too awkward and onerous to have somebody in-house who knows how to run 3 or 4 different kinds of analytical packages, to do 3 or 4 different types of analyses on an MRI exam, and to stay proficient at it and do enough of them to get really good at it. And that's one of the advantages we have, again, is it takes we train people to do our system in an afternoon. To learn how to do cardiac analysis on MRI takes months. To learn how to analyze 3D echo, cardiac echo, is 6 to 9 months. So, nobody's got 6 to 9 months to learn a new technique right now. So the fact that you can learn what we do in a few hours is a huge advantage. So we're going to grow the sales. We'll have recurring revenues from the consumable as well as the leasing model. And, we have significantly reduced the cost of these machines from the generation 2 to generation 3 device. So we're running at 80% plus margins. And so it'll be a very nice, profitable business as we build it out. I've done this several times before. All the different things I brought them into the world, some of which I've invented, some of which mostly other people have invented, have been used to treat 300 million people worldwide and to sustain their lives. So I'm quite proud of the fact that Ventripoint has the ability to help a lot more people than that. And so I'm keen to get on with it. Desmond is our Chief Technology Officer. He's been at this for 20 years. He's the guy who really took the machine from version 2 to version 3 and got rid of and built a new tracking system, which we have a new patent pending on, and a number of other innovations which are coming in future devices. So he's a fantastic engineer. And Elvira is our operations manager and our regulatory. She's got many years of experience, and she's the reason why we get through the FDA in 45 days, and Health Canada and Europe in under 30 days, and China in under 3 years. Well, I think China is a different story altogether. But anyway, it did take about 2.5 years to get through China. And last person is Dave McFerden, who's our global sales director, and he's had 30 years of business selling capital equipment to hospitals in imaging, and he came to us as former sales director for Siemens in the same space. So good team, big opportunity, substantially de-risked because we have a product that now works perfectly and has all the regulatory approvals. The good chance it will be taken out once we get to our 80 to 100 installations. And so that's where we're at. Happy to take questions.
Hey, George. Yeah, great presentation. And it's obviously, really exciting time for the company, as is evidenced by what's been happening with the stock. And I think it's a fantastic technology that's much needed, especially I think COVID is going to, the lingering effects of COVID are definitely going to present an even bigger market for you here as people struggle with the after effects. So it's definitely great technology at the right time. I would like to open the floor to questions from our attendees. If you have a question, and we already have a handful, you can go to the Q&A tab and click on that, or you can put your question in the chat. So I'm going to get going on that, George. But to those who Torrey Hills Capital attendees who might not be as familiar with the company as the other attendees, can you just go through the ease of getting a hospital set up on this, just how it works remotely and how quickly you can get them up and running?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So right now we ship out the machines. They take it out of the box, plug it in, and we call in. The IT guy creates a temporary loop for us. It takes us 10 minutes to calibrate it, set it up, make it work, go, and then we're good to go. And then, as I said, the training usually takes a couple of hours. So somebody can take it out of the box in 9 in the morning and be fully operational and proficient by noon. And it's all done remotely.
Absolutely. And with an MRI, and it's like you said, it's instead of 6 hours, it's 6 to 9 months. So no, that's great.
I don't take out of the box. No.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to just kind of filter through some of these questions. One of the panel, someone is asking, who is your competition at this point and what makes you better? I think we know what makes you better at this point, but is anyone doing these kinds of scans right now that is comparable?
No, the competition is basically people using the standard techniques, the surrogate techniques, and treating people without the knowledge of the right heart mechanics. I mean, it's basically they're operating blind, and there's nobody who can do the reconstructions the way we can. There are some people who have automated algorithms that will do this on 3D scans, like Philips, TomTech. Like I said, they only work on normal hearts. If you actually have an abnormal heart or you have a poor image, 3D image, it won't work. It just gives you gibberish. So people don't use it clinically for that reason. So there's no clinical competition. People use surrogates. So they measure cross-sectional area and they kind of guess at how big the heart is based on how, its diameter at the equator, things like that, which has been shown over and over again to not be accurate. But it's the best they have. It's what they're used to doing. So, but from a corporate perspective, we don't have a competitor that's even close to being able to get MRI grade information from a 2D echo.
Which I think is the reason why down the road it is such an attractive acquisition play. So for sure.
Well, so let's talk about that a bit. Okay, so everybody thinks that the future is 3D ultrasound, being able to take a holographic picture of your heart. I mean, it's the holy grail. They want to know just in 5 seconds. And right now it takes anywhere from 25 to 35 minutes to get those 16 slices through your heart. Because every time you move the window, every time you adjust the probe, you got to refocus the system. So you can imagine it's like you're taking a picture with your camera. Every time you go to a whole new world, you got to take the lens off, put a different lens on, focus it all up, get it organized, take the picture, then do it all over again. So it takes about 25 or 35 minutes to collect those 16 standard views. So the industry, the doctors, the industry, the hospitals, everybody wants you to shorten that time. Or, sonographers are always under pressure to get it done faster, But give me a good job. Do a good job, but get it done faster. So the 3D has been the holy grail. It says, okay, you put it on, on the apex in your, in your abdomen, just under your sternum, and you take a 3D picture of your heart from below. Bang. Okay. Takes 10 seconds. If you get a good picture, fantastic. Then you can go in and there's all sorts of automated algorithms that will analyze that and give you an answer. It's very hard to do that and get the whole heart in the picture. So there's always missing information. There's also always pieces that are blurry. So consequently, you don't get good data out of it. Nobody uses it clinically. But they, Siemens, Philips, GE, all these guys spend hundreds of millions of dollars a year trying to improve the hardware to get better and better images from 3D. And every 18 months or so, they get a little better. They're not good enough yet. We can actually analyze those images because we don't need a perfect image where I can draw a border, where I can actually see where the blood is and where the heart muscle is continuously all the way around. I mean, we only use little dots. So we have 3 or 4 dots. That's all we need to be able to nail exactly the size and shape of every chamber in the heart. So I believe we can make 3D happen much faster, and we're in the process of trying to prove that. But that's where people are going. So people don't spend but that being said, even today, about 8% of people you do 2D on, the images are unreadable. The study is unreadable because images are so bad. Using 2D, 3D, it's more like 35-40% unreadable right now. So there'll always be a need for 2D on those patients who give you bad images, regardless of what kind of technology. They're never going to get 3D technology to give you good images on more than 80% of the people at best. 20% of people will always give you bad images, so you'll have to go back to 2D and use 2D anyway. And I think the industry hasn't really processed that in their brain. They're just thinking 3D will be the tool of choice someday. And that's what they put all their time and energy into. So I think they're wrong, but that's what they do. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to hit these questions one by one. Manufacturing time frame from beginning to installation. How many can you build in a month?
It takes 5 hours to make one over a period of a week. So a 40-hour week, we can make 8. One person can make 8 of them. So if you have 5 people, you can make 40 a month. You can make as many as you want. We're just, off-the-shelf components. We just assemble them. So, when we get into higher production, we would, just hire more people and build them. And I'm sure we could find economies of a scale to make it go faster. But right now it takes 5 hours to make one. And there's some pure steps along the way. So it takes 5 hours over a period of a week.
Yeah. But I mean, you can pretty much
scale
it up.
You can make hundreds a month, and when we get to the point of needing thousands a month, we won't be doing that job anyway. Somebody else will be doing that. Yeah.
And how close are you to a repeat sale to a hospital who's already purchased one?
Timing is always difficult with COVID. I think we would be a lot closer if COVID wasn't around. I don't know. With COVID in there, I would say it's probably 3 to 6 months, but I just don't know how quickly COVID is going to let these hospitals reopen. Right now, there's just been a study done globally, published, showing that there's been a 64% reduction in echocardiography worldwide. since COVID hit, and that was done in March and April. We're on the first peak. I would say right now you're probably at 80 to 90% of echocardiography groups are shut down. And that's a big problem, because I also hear from cardiologists all the time, backlog. Well, so you have to understand that certainly, and most echocardiographer groups are running flat out 100%. We're struggling to deal with the patient load they had before COVID hit, and now they got a backlog of 6 or 9 months. Well, how do you clear a backlog of 6 or 9 months when you don't have any bandwidth, extra bandwidth? I mean, they're still going to have the same patients, 100% patients when they reopen. So, the fact that we can get this analysis done much more quickly and much more accurately is something they're looking at and going, hey, this may be the answer to getting through this backlog. And of course, and we are working on an automated system, fully automated. I mean, now it takes 2.5, 3 minutes to put the dots on, and some people are faster at putting dots on than others. We can automate that process, and we've now verified that we can automate that process. So the next generation product will be an automated point selection process, so that the operator will only have to take the images and push the analyze button, and 20 seconds later they'll have all the data they want, MRA grade data, and that will save them quite a bit of time compared to the conventional way because now they spend 30 minutes. 35 minutes collecting the images, they spend another 10 or 15 minutes analyzing them. So it's a 45-minute part of your day to do these. I'll just say, just so you understand, in fact, if you have somebody who has not good images, you can do that analysis quite quickly. 5 or 6 minutes, you can do the analysis. It's the ones that aren't really good. It's the 25% that are a little blurry, and actually the last 8% who are totally unreadable. That consumes all your time as a cardiologist, an echocardiographer, and someone who reads echoes all day, every day. You may read 30 echoes, but actually use, and the first 25 you can get done in a couple of hours. And the rest of your day you spend struggling to try and read the last 5 or 6. So it's the last 5 or 6 that take all the time that we can really help with.
Talking about the veterinary space, so do you know how many of the vet clinics now have standard ultrasound, and do they need to have standard ultrasound in order to have a Ventripoint machine in there?
Yes, our machine only works with an existing 2D machine. We're agnostic, whether you've got a GE or a Philips or a Siemens or a Toshiba or SRT or whatever, doesn't matter what machine you have. Our machine works with all of those, but we don't sell ultrasound machines. We only sell these adapter, which basically we say turns your ultrasound machine into an MRI machine. They would have to buy one, but you can buy a used 2D ultrasound machine for $5,000. It's not a big expense for them to get up and operational. Right now, I think, according to the American Vet Society, there's about 300 clinics in the United States who do ultrasound, cardiac ultrasound on animals. But when we've been talking to the vets at North Carolina, they're saying, everybody wouldn't do it if there was if it were simple and easy and you could get good numbers. So they say the market is much bigger than the 300 people who currently have an ultrasound.
I would agree. And I can't imagine, how would you do an ultrasound on an animal? You would have to put it under, correct? I mean, how? An animal's not just going to sit there and let you.
I haven't asked. I don't think so. I mean, most dogs are kind of don't mind standing around. And again, the dogs can move around while you're doing the scanning. So it's just a matter of putting gel on the probe and putting it under their, in their chest and measuring it. I don't see why you would have to put them under. Certainly a horse, I've put needles into horses and taken blood out of them. They don't even flinch. So
yeah,
horse would not care. He'd be very happy to just stand there while you stroked his chest and did the ultrasound. And that's another market beyond dogs is horse races.
Yes.
Horse racing, because people use ultrasound, and humans, elite athletes use cardiac ultrasound to tell them how well they're going on their training and whether the heart's being damaged, pushing themselves and getting their heart into optimal shape. Because obviously, if the heart's not in optimal shape, you can't be an elite athlete. And the same thing is true for horses, but they don't typically use ultrasound on horses now. we're in the process of exploring that opportunity in the horse racing industry.
So maybe we can broaden this question a little bit. Are you planning to tap the Indian market, as it can be huge and tie it in with big pharma? It could be a great idea. So outside of Europe and China and the US, are you looking at any other markets, including India?
I've looked at them in the past. Needless to say, we're a small company. We got our hands full right now doing that. We do get approached regularly from different people all over the place wanting to be our distributor. We have some people now down in Brazil who are actively looking at the market and trying to convince us that they should be our partners. I've looked at India before. India is an interesting place. I mean, you'd have to go to a diagnostic clinic, a little clinic somewhere to be referred to a hospital. You can't just go walk into a hospital in India. And I know there's about 50 or 60 clinics for every hospital in India, and they're all privately owned. And so we've been approached by a number of people who own a number of these clinics saying this would be a great new tool we would have in our clinic. We would be able to offer the service, we'd be competitive with the other people who are stealing our business, yada, yada, yada. We have not gone forward with that because we just don't have the bandwidth right now to deal with that. And again, we would really, this is an advanced tool. This is not something right now. It's set up that you can use to scan somebody who just walked into your clinic and said, I have a pain in my chest, and you were trying to figure out whether it was a heart attack or something else, a muscle spasm. This tool is really for people who have significant heart failure, and you need to follow them every 3 months, and you need to really figure out the trend lines and what's happening to that heart, and whether the therapy you've applied is working or not, or whether you need to change the therapy. Hence, you need the accuracy and the reproducibility that we provide. Because if you're going to scan right now, and that's simply not there in the industry right now outside of MRI, and you just don't put somebody in MRI every 3 months. Can't afford it, and they wouldn't tolerate it anyway. So there's a huge gap in the market right now in terms of just being able to monitor people with enough precision that if you see a difference every 3 or 4 or 5 months, that is real, and you need to react to that difference, and that's the opportunity. I think we will in the future build much simpler systems, point of care systems, which will take advantage of our technology, and where you can have anybody, not even somebody who's a cardiologist, not even somebody who's a sonographer, can just have a point of care handheld ultrasound device, and it will automatically analyze the images and tell you whether you need to send this person on for more of an expert assessment, or whether there's nothing wrong with this person's heart. So we'll get there, and we have been talking to some people about how, the need for an artificial intelligent system on these handheld devices. And cardiologists are particularly worried about that because, they're very concerned that ER physicians and people who aren't cardiologists are going to be looking at ultrasound images of the heart and trying to interpret them. And as I've just shown you, that's not even easy for a cardiologist, and they're very concerned about how well the other physicians could do that. And so if they had an automated system like ours, then they would be confident that the answers they're getting are right. So there you go. Yep.
Thank you for that. The patents, can you talk about your technology, the patents on the technology, in the risk of GE or other companies coming forth with, their product, what capital do you need to get to profitability? A lot of questions there.
Okay, so we have a exclusive global license for the original technology, which is the knowledge-based reconstruction technology, the artificial intelligence from the University of Washington in Seattle. That patent has now gone public domain, but we took that initial idea and added significantly to the algorithm. So if you were to simply practice the patent that's now in the public domain, you wouldn't get even close to even 80% accuracy, which is useless in the clinical world. So most of the changes in the algorithm are proprietary. All of them that we've changed are proprietary. And we also spent 10 years building a catalog of hearts, of normal hearts and weirdest shaped hearts you could ever imagine. And that's part of the catalog. And that's part of the magic, because not only do we create the dots, we send those dots to the catalog comes back with pieces of the heart, and we put that together and build them on. And that's how we get to MRI grade accuracy and precision. So the databases are proprietary, the algorithm improvements are proprietary. On top of that, we have patent filing on the new tracking system, which is a significant cost differential for us. So, and we also we'll put out some more information about filing more patents on other aspects of what we're doing in the future. So there's lots of things we're going to patent in the future, and we have patent applications being drafted now. So I think we'll have some protection in terms of GE being able to do it. Listen, I've sold my companies to Pfizer and DuPont and Boston Scientific, big companies like GE. I'll tell you, it would take them 2 years to get around to making a decision to try. So,
Yes,
it's so much easier to buy us than to start from scratch and try and come up with try and duplicate our technology. It would take at least 3 or 4 years, even for GE, to duplicate our technology, if in fact they had the people inside who could do it. Yeah.
I know that normally, you've told me in the past on past webinars.
Right, there was the second half of that, capital.
Oh yeah.
How much capital do we need? The rule of thumb in biotech, if somebody wants to give you money, you should take it. We have money now. We have cash in the bank for 9 months, and we have warrants because of the share price has jumped up here. We have warrants being exercised. So if all those warrants get exercised, we'll have money for 2 years. And so if this thing takes off and we need to start making hundreds of machines a month and installing them, then we'll need capital to scale. But that's a good problem to have. But right now, I think we will have the capital we need to wait out COVID and get to the 80 to 100 installs that we need to break through that dignity level where we can get significantly more engaged with potential partners.
Yeah. And I know that, when you're normally showing the technology to doctors, they love it, but someone is asking, have there been any negatives by doctors or researchers that you've, seen maybe something that can be improved on in the product, or is it pretty much very well received?
We had nothing but negatives on version 2. Version 3, everybody has not been giving us negatives. In fact, what they've been focused on is saying, if you can do that, can you make it do this and make it do that? And so we have a team of the top cardiologists in the world who would give us advice on how to make the system, how to do better analytics and not better, I guess, different kinds of analytics that they would always wish they could get from an ECMO machine, but we're unable to do. And so, yes, so we have a number of improvements, but they're really increased capacity of this, increased features of the system, not changing it in terms of its usability and what it gives and the routine stuff it gives right now. So everybody's extremely happy with the way it works, how well it fits into the workflow, ease of use, ease of analysis, ease of training, all that stuff. There's been no complaints anywhere on that scheme. It just inspires them to give us more and more ideas of other things they wish this machine could do, some of which we will be able to do. Yeah.
Okay. And what is the breakdown of your sales completed or in progress by the type of revenue model choices you gave us earlier?
Well, all the 11 we've done so far have been capital purchases. The next 11, I think there's about 50-50 split between leases and capital purchases. Now, obviously, the ones in the US are mostly leases. Europe and Canada doesn't function on CPC codes and reimbursement codes and all that kind of stuff. So they don't run their operations on a per use basis. So they're much more attuned to buying something and using it, as opposed to the United States system, where they're much more interested in how much profit can I make every time I use this machine, and so they're keen on the leasing model right now. And I think as they begin to realize what we can do to help them with the backlog, and as they begin to realize that this is going to give them extra revenue and help them clear their backlog, I think the sales in the United States will the sales cycle will shorten significantly.
Do you have any insights into the recent surge in volume and price? I mean, we traded roughly 35 million shares this week, I think, and the stock has done really well. Any insight into what's been going on?
Well, those people who have been with us for a while know this is about the fifth or sixth time this has happened to us, where we've traded, 30, 40, 50 million shares in a week. And this all started back in 2017 when we had a group jump in and when we announced the first approval for the product in Canada, the stock went crazy and these momentum and people got into the stock, and we've been on their radar ever since. So once or twice a year, this happened in September last year, same thing, went up, with all this volume, came back down. This year, the same thing again. They've all jumped in. There's a group out in Western Canada who have done some significant due diligence on us, and we're convinced to start buying in. So they bought in a bit last week, and that I think put us back on the radar of these momentum guys. And so this is just the market doing what the market does. I don't know why we're the favorite. I describe it as a football game. They're just out there kicking the ball back and forth, and we happen to own the field, but we're not in the game. We're just kicking the ball back and forth there. So it works for us in the sense that, we have a number of debentures that have been converted recently. And so people have been able to sell into that strength and not have any meaningful impact on the share price. And we also, as I mentioned, are getting warrants now exercised, and I assume some of those people are selling those into the market. But again, on the kind of volumes we're seeing, it's having zero impact on the price. It's just being consumed by the market in a matter of seconds. So it's a good thing for us. Eventually, these guys move on. If you go back and look at, I've analyzed this thing. We did 25 million on Tuesday, did 12 million yesterday. I predict we'll do 6 million today. Tomorrow we'll do 3 million. It's always half every day, and then they go away again. So when they go away, with the stock will probably be at 16, 17 cents, which is nice, up from the 12 cents where they started this craziness. And then it'll move up from there as we begin to put out the press releases and show the value that we've been building in the last few months. There's no point in putting press out in the middle of this snowstorm, this hurricane, whatever it is. We'll put it out when this all dies down. We'll get back to demonstrating the value of the company.
Yeah. In terms of the revenue model, are there revenues gained from maintenance of the system, and what is your typical, life of the system, in terms of, replacing a machine or?
Well, it's basically a computer, right?
Yeah.
The hardware is a computer. I mean, the tracking system is just a PCB board, which is essentially a computer too. So you can expect these things to last for 4 to 5 years, and then they'll either be obsoleted or they'll start having problems. And that's been our experience with the earlier versions, even version 1 and version 2. They went on happily for about 5 years, and then they power supplies broke down and fans broke and things like that. We don't have any fans or power supplies or anything in these things anymore. That's all gone. So it's all just the computer we buy. We obviously have to buy high-end computers for medical applications, so they're good computers, so they should easily last 4 or 5 years. But we will continue to evolve the machine. So I would say we will obsolete our own hardware in 3 to 4 years.
Yeah. Someone is asking if it's, and I think you answered this on a previous webinar, but if it's applicable to the technology to any other organs in the body.
Yes. So I've had numerous discussions over the years. Again, it's a bandwidth issue, and people wanting to measure the volume of liver cancer nodules, because if there's a magic number, 2.5 centimeters diameter, a liver nodule. Once it goes beyond that, there is no therapy besides liver transplants. So below 2.5, you can treat it and deal with the liver cancer. So a number of people have hepatitis, hepatitis is endemic worldwide. It's getting worse and worse. You know, in certain areas in the world, 25% of people have hepatitis. And that invariably leads to liver cancer. So there's a huge need to scan people with hepatitis and catch the liver cancer early and accurately quantify the volume of those nodules. So that's one application. Another one I've been told is, you know, prostate cancer. You already do 2D ultrasound on a prostate when you're doing biopsies, to guide the biopsies and make sure you're getting samples from all over the tumor. And so you've already got the 2D echoes. Why not calculate the volumes and get an accurate result? And so those are two applications, liver cancer and prostate cancer, that people have indicated to me that we could do a very good job, and where there's a need for better accuracy, reproducibility of imaging. Yeah.
Anything more you can add about the horse industry? I mean, I know you're kind of feeling your way through that, but there's someone here who has reached out to you in the past, and you know, they're just asking how far along you are in that particular space.
Well, we're nowhere. I mean, I've got a list of about 10 significant people in that industry that I've been introduced to through my shareholders, and the people on these calls have given me names and numbers and introductions. I just, given all the craziness that's been going on this week in the market, I have had no chance to follow through on the horse business. But you know, it's we'll get there.
Yeah.
Just,
We're gonna focus on humans first.
Yeah, the humans get the priority one, and I think dogs will get priority two. And the horse racing guys will explore that. I mean, they're actually, you know, I live in Guelph, and the veterinary college right here, and there's actually somebody at the veterinary college who's an expert in doing echocardiography on horses. So I just have to get down to talk to her and see what she sees as the opportunity. But she's just doing regular horses. She's not doing horse races. You know, racing horses. So, you know, there's a huge industry in Florida, and I've got connections into a number of people in Florida who have huge stables, and even some of the people who've had, you know, Kentucky Derby winners and things like that. So where these horses are worth $10 million, right? So, yeah, and they're trained, and they've got hundreds they're training to be the next winner or whatever. So I think there's a huge opportunity there to give them a simple tool to measure heart function in horses while they're training them. But that's just my best guess. I haven't talked to anybody.
Yeah. What do you see as any immediate term catalyst for the company, and subsequently for the share price, on top of what we've already seen?
Well, we're working on a number of collaborations with alliances around marketing as well as clinical studies. So I would see, you know, some of those are very significant partners, and I anticipate that we will have an announcement about a significant alliance sometime in the near term, not tomorrow, but
Yeah.
sometime soon. If we can get that agreement solidified, then I think that would be a huge catalyst.
And have you projected when you could possibly hit free cash flow? Is that on a you know, certain number of machines sold, or repeat business on probes? Like, how would it work? Have you know, projected that yet?
Well, if it were normal times, it would be about 9 to 12 months, but it's not normal times, right? So until I know when the hospital is going to reopen, I can't make any projections on that. But our burn rate is only $75,000 a month, which is, you know, 2 machines a month would cover our burn rate, give us cash flow positive. So, you know, and even if, you know, but the leasing model is much more lucrative at the end of the day, because you know, the average echocardiography service would be doing thousands of procedures a year, you know. So we prefer the leasing model, because that would give us 1,000 procedures a year is $50,000 a year in recurring revenue, as opposed to selling a machine once for $50,000 and getting $5,000 a year annual maintenance and licensing fees. So we prefer the leasing model. If we could get, if we could get 20 machines out there on the leasing model, that would cover our burn. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the leasing model, I'm sure, is less capital intensive to these hospitals anyway in terms of upfront money. So
yeah, so 20 or 30 would cover our burn.
Yeah. Any thought of selling the rights to the 3.0 to a Chinese company for the Chinese market? For example, for royalties and the rights to sell in China, or are you guys going to keep that in-house?
No, we already have a Chinese partner in China, and they built a factory to build these machines in Nanshan, and they're building out their distribution network. They've already got a number of machines in top hospitals all over China who are currently being evaluated. They spent the 2.5 years to get through the FDA in China for the machines. So no, there's no plans to change anything about China. I mean, we already have a rev share, equity share swap deal with them that we will complete when we see some traction in the marketplace on their end. They say that will happen this year. We will see, but no, we have no plans to do anything else in China. They have the rights, and they're exploiting them.
Yeah. This is a specific question from an attendee. George, I had a scan a year ago and then a second scan today. Can your software do a comparison of 2 scans?
Well, yes, of course. I'm not sure the question's kind of odd. I mean, the whole point here is that, the normal variation from a conventional analysis of a conventional 2D ultrasound, cardiac ultrasound, let's say in something like, volume of the left ventricle, is plus or minus about 20%. So you have to have a difference of like 30 or 40% to believe it's real. Well, you're not going to see a change of 30% in the volume of your heart in a 3-month period, unless you've got really bad. And obviously, if you got COVID, yes, maybe you might see that. But so when you're trying to compare, scan from there and now, you want precision. So you say, okay, last time you were in, your heart was beating, had a volume of 75, and now you've got a volume of 85. Well, ours is plus or minus, 5%. So you say, hey, a change of 10 ml is meaningful. That means this heart is struggling. I mean, the first thing your heart does when it struggles, whether it's ischemic heart failure, congestive heart failure, overload, whatever, the first thing the heart does is get bigger. So when you see a heart getting bigger, there's a problem. But you have to be able to see that. And if you're going from 75 to 85 and you're doing those measurements, cardiologists go, oh, there's no real difference between 75 and 85, go home. When in fact, there is a difference between 75 and they need to start treating you today. Okay, so that's the comparison that needs to get done.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that's it for the questions, George. And it happens to be right up just past an hour, so perfect timing. But I want to thank you for coming on today and bringing so many attendees in today. I think we had 80 people on at one point, which is pretty fantastic. And we appreciate you getting us up to speed on Ventripoint's lead product and getting an update on the company. It looks like everything's trending in the right direction, especially the stock has done really, really well. And it looks like you have a lot of milestones we can look forward to you hitting here. Once we get past COVID, I know that's been a real kind of hiccup, but I think that we're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel with the vaccines.
Right, we've been extremely busy in the COVID world, and moving things along on the technology and on the alliance side of things. So COVID's not been a bad thing for us, and all our people are happy working from home. So we're very, very productive. So I think when the market's ready to open, we're going to be more than ready to supply them with the equipment, in fact. So that's good. I mean, it was in terms of stock, one analyst chart, one of these chart guys who lives in a cave and comes out every now and again and says, your chart looks like it's over. So these guys send me an email saying, your chart looks like it's oversold. It needs to consolidate a bit right here, which is, I assume, what's going on today and tomorrow. And then we'll go up from there. Yeah.
Well, in the meantime, if anyone needs any additional information, you can visit the Ventripoint Diagnostics website at www.ventripoint.com, including the details of the on the VMS 3.0 system, as well as any additional information. You can also reach out to George directly, or you can reach out to me at Torrey Hills Capital. I hope I got to everyone's question. I believe I did, and if I missed anything, again, please feel free to reach out. But we want to thank you for your time today and to get up to speed on Ventripoint Diagnostics, and we look forward to your attendance at a future podcast presentation presented by Torrey Hills Capital. Until then, be safe, be well. George, take care, and we will talk soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.